Hello and welcome to Dr. Sill's Intern Diaries. It is weird to talk about yourself in third person like that, I'm realizing now, but that's the title I've given it and that's what we're going with. Okay, if you're new here, welcome. Hello, my name's Sill. I'm a junior doctor working in Sydney, Australia, and once a week I put together a little bit of a reflective video where I talk about what I did well and what I didn't do so well. So in this episode, we're talking about some of the mistakes I made in my first week as a clinical intern. Last week, episode 1, it was my first week as an intern, but it was more an orientation kind of week. This week has been on the wards, clinical. If you enjoy this kind of content, please consider subscribing. You can also leave a comment below of some of the interesting experiences you guys have had, and maybe one day I'll make a compilation of all the interesting comments I've had. Anyway, let's get into this week's video. So overall, the week was really good. I'm feeling very good. It's Friday night, and the first week on the wards, you have an intern as a buddy. So it was a buddied week. So I always had an intern by my side. That really softens the blow of starting full-time work because you can always ask someone questions. However, I did make mistakes, but luckily they all got caught and rectified before anything happened. And the mistake I made that was, the most silly was I was writing a prescription for someone to have what's called transitional leave, and that's when someone on the ward leaves for a couple days. And if you guys don't know, I'm working in mental health and a rehabilitation unit, and essentially we have patients who have chronic conditions, long-term issues, schizophrenia, autism, mood disorders, anxiety, OCD, long-term conditions that are so severe that they can't function in the community normally. And so this rehab unit is really to help, first of all, control their illness, the mental illness, but also to develop life skills and the stabilize psychosocial issues, get them accommodation, that sort of thing. So part of that is them having what's called transitional leave, and so they go and they go home for a couple of days and come back, and then they say what went well, what didn't go so well, and then you address what didn't go so well, and then they do it again, and eventually they develop the ability to basically be discharged as the transitional leave gets longer. Anyway, my job in transitional leave is to write the scripts. So if they go for 3 days, I give them 3 days worth of their medicines. Pretty easy job. But I'm I don't know, I'm not a perfectionist. I don't do things with fine brush strokes, and I miscounted the number of days someone was going. They were going maybe a Friday to a Monday, and I counted it maybe a Friday to a Sunday or something like that. And it's not the end of the world, no one's gonna die. They just have to either come back a day earlier or get scripts redone. But it's a pretty silly mistake that you don't wanna make as a doctor, and I felt pretty silly about it because it caused a bit of headaches around the ward. Luckily it got caught, it was all good, but anyway, that was my first error. And it was a medication error, and I did like my honors year on medication errors. So now I'm really aware of just how common and easy it is to make medication errors. So all you pharmacists out there who are advocating for safe prescribing, I get you. But the good thing I did this week was I caught a side effect of a medication. So it's Friday, and I was just talking to one of the patients about something totally unrelated, but he was telling me he hasn't been sleeping so well. And I just said, tell me about your sleep, what's been happening? He starts describing this need to stretch his limbs around 11 p.m. and how he can't really sleep well, and sometimes he wakes up needing to move. Really sounds like something called akathisia, which is a side effect of a lot of antipsychotic medications, and it's basically a restlessness, and you'll see people shuffling on the spot, stretching and moving, and it can be a really bad side effect. People have suicided because of akathisia, because they're just so they can never be still. So it can be very debilitating. His was very early, and so we stopped his medication that was causing it and switched it. And so he'll be on that over the weekend. So that was a nice thing. I made an error, but I also caught a side effect of a medication, and I was the first one to catch it. And I also this week started to form a bit of a deeper connection with a lot of the patients and learn a bit about their stories. And some of it is just absolutely heartbreaking. Stories of domestic violence and abuse and all the worst things in society. Concentrated into these extremely vulnerable people when they were children and ongoing. So I can't really give you examples because if that patient was to watch a video of mine and could self-identify, that would be pretty that could be upsetting. So it's just, I can talk about this thematically, and essentially there's just a lot of stories of abuse, and it's super shit that people do that to other people. But what's nice is rehabilitation is a slower term, but you're seeing essentially people get better and building skills and developing resilience and developing capacity to go out there in the world and restart. And they're doing TAFE courses, they're getting to jobs. So that's been really nice to see. I think it's a good thing that this is such a quiet term, because I can take things at a bit of a slower pace, learn my way around the hospital systems, and yeah, it's, I'll have plenty of time to be busy in other terms. An interesting experience this week was performing an examination on someone who was very anxious. And performing an examination on someone who's very anxious can be very difficult, because they want constant reassurance that everything's normal and I'm perfectly healthy and fine. Which I can give to an extent. I can say that my examination hasn't revealed any abnormalities. They try and force you to minimize the possibility that something is wrong, because something could have been wrong. That's why we were doing the examination. Yeah, I found myself in a very difficult situation where I'm really appreciating how you need to be very careful about the words you use. And so there's this art of conversation in mental health and psychiatry. You want to be very reflective about what you say before you say it. And so that's not something I'm particularly good at. As you probably can tell from these YouTube videos, I like to just come here, sit down, and ramble about my week. The final thing that was exciting this week that I wanted to share is I got my first paycheck. And as you have to do whenever you get your first paycheck as an intern, you have to spend it all. I won't be spending it all, but I am going to be taking my partner out to a lovely, very zhuzhy dinner. And we're going to a place that it charges your credit card if you don't turn up. So it's got to be good. And then we're going to watch a movie afterwards called High Ground, which looks pretty interesting. And I think it might be interesting for some of you to see my payslip, to see what a junior doctor gets paid and that sort of thing. So let's open it up. Okay, so here we are on my payslip. I think I've blacked out everything that's sensitive that I shouldn't be sharing, but kept the good stuff. So here we go. So I'm an intern, as you might just be able to see there. And my weekly base rate is $1,300 per week, which is all right. It works out to be about $69,000 a year, which is pretty good. And that goes up if you do a lot of overtime. In this term, I won't be doing much overtime, so this will be pretty standard. And when you deduce tax, it works out to be about $1,200 a week. So nothing wrong with that. None of this makes much sense to me. You start to accrue sick leave. You are getting, so I get $35 an hour, and then I have no idea what all this is. It might just be a correction thing, but it looks like I've made like $10 from it, maybe $15 from it. And also, guys, I have to tell you about my first referral as an intern. Now, I can't tell you what team I was calling and what about, because it could make them look bad, but it was pretty funny because basically this person had a borderline issue. It might have not been it probably wasn't a big medical problem, but it's been there for a while, so we made the call about this medical problem. And the person receiving the call was like, "Oh, look, this is pretty bullshit, but we accept all referrals, so we'll deal with it." And so I was like, my first, referral, talking to another doctor about a patient I had, the person was like, "This is bullshit." I was like, anyway, it's not my fault. It's, you do these referrals because your team as a whole believes that this is worth doing. So we all it's not just me that wanted the referral. And I guess something I'm grateful for is my response to people that can come across as rude or irritable or think that what you're doing is bullshit, is to laugh. It's my defense mechanism, and I think I do it to superficialize the situation, because if I take it too seriously, then I'd be upset. And so my defense mechanism to not be upset is to just laugh, to just be like, okay, sorry about that. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, because at the end of the day, like, these little interactions don't matter in the greater scheme of the world. And so we're all just trying to do the best by the patient. Okie dokie, everyone. That is it for this video. I hope that was interesting. I think I talked about everything I wanted to. If not, I'll put it in next week's video. I hope you are all having a wonderful, wonderful day, and I'll see you all in the next video. All right, bye for now.